because liberty matters, because people's due process right matters. I don't care if they're from the left or the right. The bottom line is the reports of treatment that are coming out of that jail are reprehensible. They are not American.
These scientists may be complicit in one of the greatest crimes against humanity.
But I think it raises a lot of questions about whether the money is going to be funneled ultimately into the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese military.
You got to pick a side. And General Milley picked one. And it wasn't the red, white, and blue.
Welcome, everyone, to Americans for Limited Government live stream. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Barbara from Harlem is joining us from Harlem, clearly. Barbara, welcome to the show. And I'm really excited to have you on today to react to the breaking news this week that the Biden Justice Department has mobilized the FBI to investigate and go after parents who are speaking out at these local school board meetings against critical race theory or really any policies being taught in the schools. So that's what we want to talk about today. And I hope people will be interested in that because I know Barbara is very passionate and has a really powerful viewpoint, having raised 5 children in the public schools. But before we get to our topic, Barbara, you also have a very interesting and unique personal story. You were born in the Bronx, is that right?
That is correct.
And grew up in Harlem. You said at one point as a child, your parents divorced and you had a very tough struggle with poverty. Yes. Why don't you just give us a little bit about your personal story and then how you got to be, you have been called the godmother of Black conservatives. So take us
the godmother.
Yes. The godmother of Black conservatives. So take us through just briefly that journey.
Well, during my era, when you turned 21, you were expected to register to vote. And in my community, Black equals Democrat. So, of course, when I turned 21, I became a Democrat. But prior to that, I know the difference when you have a mother and a father in the home. At my younger years, up until I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, I had a father and a mother. That gave you a solid family, security, et cetera, validation, all of the things that a child needs. When my father abandoned the family, we went through terrible times. My mother, it was hard for her to pay the $39 a month rent for the apartment at 1831 Amsterdam Avenue. She had to take 2 jobs. She worked at Rockland State Hospital side to try to feed 5 children, pay the rent, and do, for us to have a normal life. It was very hard. My brothers, my 2 older brothers, all of a sudden were, roaming the street because they didn't have a father to correct them. And they had a mother who was working almost around the clock to feed us. So my brothers became members of gangs, et cetera. Life became very hard, very terrible. It was horrific. So, but we survived it. I got married at a very young age while I was in high school. And unfortunately, I had 5 children also. And unfortunately, my marriage also took a dive for the worse. My husband abandoned his 5 children. So therefore, I was stuck in the same scenario that my mother found herself in. But by the grace of God and working very diligently, I was able to manage to buy homes, et cetera. So even my book that I've written, I mention a lot of these things because many women are caught up like I've been caught up and like my mother was caught up. But I want to give them hope, to let them know that it's possible to still lead a very successful and fulfilling life in spite of some of the odds that are presented against you.
Well, Barbara, I have a picture of your book.
That was the purpose even of me writing the book, to chronicle escaping the racism of low expectations. Yes.
Yep. I have a picture of it up, and there's a beautiful photo of you. Looks like you've signed a copy for a young woman. And that book,
yeah.
that book's been out since 2018. It's available on
That's
Amazon.
correct.
I found it there. And you really do have an extraordinary story. And I'm grateful that you are sharing it not only with us, but I think you go all over the country, and you have a radio show based there in Harlem that you have listeners all over the country who listen to you. What is your main message? And you don't just speak to Black Americans. You have a message you share with everyone. What do you tell people that's really driving you?
Well, what really drives me is being born in America, with the opportunities that we have here, with the freedoms and with the liberties that we have here. I'm so blessed to be an American citizen, and I want people to realize, while we're not perfect, and to have been, to get to live in. And as a Black woman, when people are talking about racism here, racism there, that's not so. I've lived a few years. I've bought homes in white neighborhoods back in the 60s. I was married to a police officer who was Black when it wasn't even popular back in the 60s. I've always been able to hold a job. I wasn't the last last hired, first fired. I never experienced any of that. I gave my bosses more than what they expected of me, and more than what they asked of me. Never been fired because of the color of my skin. And it's insulting that people keep playing this race card in a country that people who are darker than I am will spend their life trying to get here so that they can enjoy some of the freedoms and the liberties that we have. I am so angry, in a sense, at the people like Sharp Tongue, who are shattering the hopes and dreams of so many people in this country when it's unfounded. And these pulpit hustlers, they go into the pulpit and they hustle people. If they hustle people, they shatter their dreams, and they create victims. And Black people, we're not victims of anything. You know, I had a grandmother born in 1898. She never talked about racism and hating white people, and the white people were the reasons that she didn't have, because she had a skill and she worked and she had her own business. I've never known my father, born in 1915, to ever work for anyone. He was an entrepreneur before we even knew how to spell the word. Mm-hmm. So for these people to say that America is so saturated with racists, that's insulting to people like myself, who saw the Black, colored, and white signs, who know what Jim Crow is about, who attended a school in Florida, in elementary school, where only Black children and Black teachers were allowed to be. I have the history. I've lived it. And it's insulting to me for them to talk this way about the United States of America.
Well, thank you. I would like to clap and just cheer you on. So this brings us to the critical race theory, which you are one of the most outspoken critics of. And that critical race theory is what has brought so many parents into the local school board meetings, parents who in the past probably weren't even aware of what was going on in the classroom, but now they're waking up to it. They've come to these meetings, and now we hear from the Biden administration that they will be mobilizing FBI agents to go after, investigate anyone who is speaking out. That's the problem against the teaching of critical race theory in the schools. And the problem with the language that the government has put out is that it's very vague. Like, oh, if you're threatening or harassing, well, what exactly does that mean? And, you know, the Patriot Act is the legal mechanism that they're going to use. And the Patriot Act was designed to go after domestic terrorists. So this is really shocking and disturbing to so many parents. I have two children who went through public schools here in Virginia. And I mean, are parents supposed to react and fight back? I mean, what is your reaction to this new development?
My reaction is what they're doing, what this administration is doing, is totally un-American. They should be at the border trying to find out if terrorists are walking across that border. And those who are on the school board and feel that they've been threatened by domestic terrorists, they should be. These people evidently don't want you teaching their children. These people don't want you making decisions for their children. So get another profession, job, and career. Why would you expose yourself to domestic terrorists when you have the option to get out of that area? It is deplorable what this administration is doing. And anybody, and even mama bears who may have pulled the lever for what this administration, and I know it wasn't that many. Now you see just what lawlessness looks like. When you have a party talking about defund the police, that should indicate to us they don't believe in the laws of this land. Without laws, you have chaos. What this administration is doing is trying to put fear into the hearts of mothers and fathers who gave birth and who feed these children and clothe them and shelter them. Every is unconscionable. This is not what we pay our taxes for. Those same mothers and fathers are the ones who pay the salary of the school board. And as I said before, and I'll keep saying, why don't they just resign, get another job, profession, career? Get out of dealing with children whose parents don't want you to instruct them in a way that they feel is detrimental. We as a taxpayers work for us. We don't work for them. This administration wants us to believe it's not by the people, for the people. It's what the government says. And that's not so. Mother bears must arise. Mother bears must fight for their children's future, their present. We must fight. We must stand tall. And whatever they're trying to, what the fear that they're trying to put into our hearts, that's my take on it. Why don't these people get out of the school board, get off the school board?
Right. Well, I think there's so many families out there who agree with you and who are watching this,
yes,
cheering you on, because we, in fact, I just want to show a comment. One of our viewers is agreeing,
yes,
you know, absolutely, Barbara,
yes,
you go. What you're saying resonates with so many of us, but, you know, there is a concern, Barbara, that people are now going to be even less likely to go to a school board meeting, or because when you go to those public meetings, you often have to sign your name and you know, say that you were there. But people may be intimidated now because they don't want to get on some government list or have the FBI snooping around. I mean, this is really, these are difficult times for people who are worried about privacy and big government intrusion. How do we navigate this new environment that is just so really overbearing?
You know what? We just have to go through it. Our children are more important than our names on some government list. You've committed no crimes. You're not a threat to anyone. If someone feels threatened that you're paying their salary, why don't they resign? Let's just keep on giving them some common sense. We're not doing anything illegal. And for heaven's sakes, for people who have supported a party that is supporting stuff like this, and even this teachers union and all of these people, we have to stop letting these people get the power to have so much control over our lives. If we don't, we will lose our republic. We will lose our freedoms. We will lose our rights. So we just have to stand tall. Let them do what they're going to do. But I'm not going to back down when it comes to my children. You know, I had 5 children in the school system, and that was in DeLand, Florida, because I moved there for a while to, you know, I had family at school, and the principal would tell me this or that. I said, wait a minute. I pay your salary, don't I? So I want a copy of my child's school record. And if you want someone to pay for it, you pay for it. And after you read your rules and regulations, you reimburse yourself. I knew what I was entitled to. I didn't let them talk me down. And when I went there for anything, for any of my 5 children, I got it, and I didn't get static.
Barbara.
And that's one thing, 2 jobs and many times more. But my children's future was my priority. I made sure I attended those meetings. I made sure I knew all of the teachers, and I made sure of what you were trying to put in my child's head.
You are fabulous, Barbara. I'm so grateful for your fight and your zeal and what you're doing. It's such a blessing to know you. I met you just a couple of weeks ago. You were speaking at an event here in Virginia against critical race theory, and I was impressed with you, and I'm grateful that you're willing to come on and share your story with us and really give inspiration to all of the members of our organization and supporters out there. If you like what you're seeing, folks, follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and you'll get notifications. We've been doing these live stream videos daily, and we're trying to give you more content that is relevant and interesting. And I think at the end of the day, helpful and inspirational. Barbara, you've been a huge inspiration. So before we sign off, I'll give you the last word. Any final words you have for Americans for Limited Government and our supporters?
Well, I'm very proud of your organization, American for Limited Government. That's what we need. And please, voters, everyone who has the right and the privilege of voting, this should teach us a very good lesson to be more careful about who we pull the lever for. Stop all of that gang mentality or group mentality or traditional mentality. Start voting who, number one, love God, because God bless America. We didn't get here on our own. We got here because of the blessings of God. Don't forget God.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, folks, thank you for watching. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to our newsletter, and go to getliberty.org to subscribe to our newsletter. Thanks, everyone, and thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you so much. God bless, and God bless America.